Last year, I did this video about black and white reversal developing. Oh damn, that was like 2 years ago now. Reversal developing is a specific chemical process that allows you to develop the film as a positive instead of a negative. Black and white reversal isn't very common in the photo world. Most black and white films are meant to be developed as a negative. Most labs just offer standard negative developing. Most of the chemistry and the kits that you can get for this stuff is just for negative processing. But if the reversal is done properly, then most black and white films can technically be reversed and developed as a positive. This original video I did covers the more technical side of everything and how I develop black and white reversal using a somewhat non-standard method that's still a bit of a work in progress. My goal was to accomplish reversal developing without the regular bleaching method that it normally involves, or by using a reversal kit, something that just isn't easily bought here in Canada. There's also not that many people that make reversal kits for black and white. So watch that video for a more in-depth explanation of this whole process, because I'm going to skim over some of it in this. Yes, black and white reversal isn't too common in the photo world. There does exist FilmoMat R100 and ADOX Scala, two films that are specifically meant for reversal processing. These films have a transparent base and yield incredible and consistent positives, whereas many black and white films have a darker base, which can make them difficult to reverse, but not impossible. But in the motion picture world, Kodak's Tri-X film for Super 8 and 16mm is intended for reversal processing. So for this video, I wanted to try developing 100 feet of 16mm Tri-X myself using this method and see how it goes.
I shot 100 feet of 16mm Kodak Tri-X black and white reversal film in the Bolex, and I'm going to try my best to develop that entirely by hand at home. So I have a changing tent, which is obviously bigger, more spacious, easier to work in for bigger applications, loading, unloading, whatever, in comparison to a smaller change bag. So it is a light-proof environment. I don't have a darkroom at home. I do have access to a darkroom, and normally I would do this in a darkroom, but I'm just trying to see if I can do it at home. I'm going to be using the FilmoMat developing tank, which is a very nice kind of updated take on the old school Lomo developing tanks. Same kind of design of the spiral, but it's bigger. It can hold 100 feet without you having to cut it and split it up over 2 reels. So I'm going to do my best to load that in here and then develop black and white reversal myself.
I have to load this spiral in the dark, but I've already done a video on the FilmoMat tank and how film is loaded when using it.
Loaded. First try. Spiral feels good. Had to rip off a few feet of the roll, but this was at the very beginning anyways from loading the Bolex, so that should not matter. Alright. It is in the tank. Yeah. Now let's see how the developing part goes. I'm just doing it on a folding table in my hallway, so maybe the recording of this one's not going to be the best, but also what you should take away from this, if the film comes out properly, is that you don't need like a whole fancy darkroom setup to do this stuff at home. He said using a $1,200 developing tank, having shot 16mm in a Bolex. Well, some of this stuff is pretty accessible. I will detail all the steps in the video.
As with all good developing processes, the reversal process starts with a developer, referred to here as the first developer. A good first developer for black and white reversal includes a mild silver solvent, such as potassium thiocyanate. I didn't use that in the original video. Instead, I took a regular developer, HC110 at the time, and added mild amounts of fix and household ammonia cleaner to it. You can also just use a regular black and white negative developer, but the results can be hit and miss. The thiocyanate in the first developer is good for clearing the highlights and making for nice bright positives in the end. So the biggest difference in this video is that I'm using this developer, a proper reversal first developer which contains thiocyanate. This developer is based off of the recipe for Kodak D94 and was mixed from scratch for me by a friend. So I throw this developer into the tank and develop for 5 minutes. The developer and all of this chemistry is just running at the normal black and white negative developing temperature of about 20 degrees Celsius, room temperature. Also, for mixing big batches of chemistry for developing motion picture film, I've just been using these 5-liter plastic bag containers I bought off of Amazon. Not sponsored, they're not perfect, but I like that I can kind of store them really easily when they're empty. The first development stage is followed by a simple water rinse. Rinsing is the thing I struggled the most with when doing it at home in the FilmoMat tank. When working in a proper darkroom, I can just plug a hose into the tank and let water run for a bit to allow for a more thorough rinse. After this rinse, I have to bleach the film, which kind of removes the negative image that we just developed. This bleaching process does not involve actual household bleach. That doesn't work. Normally the process involves a potassium dichromate bleach or potassium permanganate bleach. For my bleach, I do it in 2 steps and use neither of those. First, I use a chemical called ferric chloride, which is typically used as a copper etchant. I dilute this 1:1 with water and put it into the tank for 4 minutes. This changes the developed metallic silver, forming the negative image on the film, into silver chloride. We basically want to remove this developed negative image from the film. After this, I rinse again, and then I use unscented household ammonia cleaner. The stuff I use is listed as 6% ammonia cleaner. I dilute this as 4 parts ammonia to 1 part water, so it's pretty strong. The ammonia helps to further clear the ferric chloride from the film and prepare the film for the remaining steps. The ammonia goes into the tank for 2 minutes. My understanding of chemistry isn't very deep, even though I'm working with chemicals. But I believe the ammonia step helps to bring the pH of the film back to a more neutral level after the acidic ferric chloride step, I think. I follow this up with another water rinse, and then I use a clearing bath. This clearing bath helps to remove a remaining tint that can be left behind by the bleaching process. For my clearing bath, I use 30 grams of sodium metabisulfite per 1 liter of water and put this in the tank for 3 minutes. Now, typically after the bleaching process, you remove the film from the tank and re-expose it to the light. That's then followed by a second developer, and that can be like any standard black and white developer. Instead of doing either of those steps though, I use this toilet bowl rust cleaning powder, Iron Out. Iron Out in this process is kind of magic, and I don't fully understand how it works. It contains sodium hydrosulfite, sodium carbonate, sodium metabisulfite, citric acid, and sodium sulfite. I mix 1 tablespoon of powder per 300 milliliters of distilled water and let this go for 5 minutes. This magical powder chemically fogs the film, which means that I don't have to physically remove it and expose it to a light source. But at the same time, it also develops and fixes the film. So it's like a 3-in-1 step. After the Iron Out is done, the film is reversed. The entire process of reversal developing for black and white is super cool. You're basically developing the negative image like normal, but then bleaching away that developed image, exposing the remaining unexposed area to light, or fogging it chemically like with Iron Out, and then developing that to create a positive image on the film. 100 feet of film in this tank is perfectly doable. It's just a learning curve, and I did it at home. So when I was done, I just sort of strung it up to dry along my hallway, and that was it. The final result is what I consider to be very good for this somewhat experimental version of reversal developing. I completely forgot that I started shooting this roll and then took it out of the Bolex before putting it back in to shoot it again later on. So it starts with some double exposure in the coffee here. We can see in the film that there's lots of unevenness to it, but that's one of the aspects of hand processing this much film. It just takes time and practice to be really good at it, and I'm just not there yet. It's being able to do the chemical exchange between the steps really well, doing really thorough rinses, and being gentle and consistent with any agitation of the film in the tank. The film is really nice and clear, the highlights are bright, and it's exactly what I want from reversal processing. I'm really happy with how this came out. I wasn't sure it would, so I shot myself making coffee one morning and some construction guys ripping up the street. Doing this in a proper darkroom is definitely the way to go though. As I mentioned, my water rinses were awkward to do and it was hard to be thorough. Ideally, I rinse after the ferric chloride step until the water isn't as orange anymore. But I didn't, and you can see that my ammonia came out really orange and contaminated from the ferric chloride. When I'm doing this in like smaller runs for rolls of photography film in just Patterson tanks, I can do really thorough rinses, and I've done it before where the ammonia comes out still almost completely clear or with just like a mild orange tint to it. When I did all this testing a couple of years ago, I didn't have a great first developer method because I wanted to see what I could accomplish using very little. So that was mixing super small amounts of ammonia and fix with HC110. But now using a first developer that contains thiocyanate, I can see a big difference in how clear the final results are. To really compare this though, I developed a roll of FP4 as a positive to compare with another roll of FP4 I developed as a positive 2 years ago. I used the same steps and the same times for this as I did with the 16mm Tri-X. My final results looked great. Incredible contrast and range in the positives, but unfortunately there are specks all over the entire roll of FP4. I don't know why. I mixed this chemistry with tap water minus the iron out step, so I maybe should have used cleaner distilled water. Maybe I missed a rinse step and I didn't realize it, but I'm still so happy with how the actual image is developed. All right, great. Here we are with the slide projector. So this is all the FP4 slides, and it looks great, kind of. There's spots all over every frame, as I just previously illustrated, and I don't really know why. But if you look at the image, if you pay attention to the actual image, then really nice looking black and white slides from FP4. Really nice, just like range of contrast and like tonality across it. FP4 reverses really well. And these are really great to look at projected. So if developed properly, a lot of black and white negative stuff can just be reversed and look really good. Even using non-traditional kind of chemical processes. So FP4 is the stuff that I've done the most reversal for when it comes to photo film, and I think it looks the best. This was all shot at like 125 ISO box speed, and yeah, just really happy with how this looks. I don't know, black and white reversal is just such an interesting process, and it's more prominent in like the motion picture stuff for Super 8 and 16 millimeter, but you know, being able to kind of understand it and experiment with shooting like a very common stock like Ilford FP4 and being able to get just like, you know, really good looking reversed positives. It's just a very vivid, very just different way of seeing your film come out when you develop it. It's also not the easiest to see from this video, but if I look at like this, this one from the recent roll that I just did, like these couple, and they're very nice and bright, like super bright and vivid. And then if you go to a roll that I developed of FP4 from a few years ago, you can see super clear, super vivid, and then these ones which are just like, they're just darker. They're not as like vivid and clear in the highlights as opposed to, you know, good first developer, really bright, really vibrant, very, very clear, nice highlights. And then these ones which are just like, just darker and not as vibrant. As I learn more about this process, I want to do it more. I think my next step is to see if I can take a standard black and white negative developer, something like D76, and just add potassium thiocyanate to it to make a good first developer instead of having to do it from scratch. I have these little containers of thiocyanate that I ordered from homesciencetools.com, and I've read that adding 5 grams of it per liter of developer will make a good first reversal developer. So that's probably what I'll try next. Thanks so much for checking this out. There's links in the description down below for ways to support the channel. There's also information for the processes that I used. I'll link to like a publicly viewable thing on my Patreon with all the instructions for this written out. Been a little bit updated from the video that I did a few years ago where I explored this process a little bit more. And yeah, I'll see you soon.